The stage was set for another Friday night taping of Crosstalk with Daniel Cross. The studio buzzed with that electric anticipation that comes just before cameras roll. Fans settled into their plush red seats, the overhead lights casting a warm golden glow across the polished set. Producers whispered last-minute cues into their earpieces, their voices crisp and urgent. Daniel Cross stood just off stage, arms crossed, wearing his signature charcoal suit and that predatory grin that had made him famous. The guest list that night was ambitious: a policy wonk, a conservative columnist, and, closing out the evening, Meghan Markle herself. Booked to discuss her ongoing advocacy work, a new podcast series, and her thoughts on social media culture, the Duchess of Sussex seemed poised and serene backstage. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. She wore an elegant black pantsuit accented with gold jewelry, her dark hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. Her smile in the mirror was perfect, polished, every gesture practiced to perfection. In the control booth, Kayla Rivers adjusted her headset, her eyes scanning the monitors with the intensity of a hawk. A manila folder marked Segment B, Personal Questions, sat conspicuously on her desk, its contents known only to her and Daniel. At exactly 8:47 p.m., the cameras rolled. Daniel's opening monologue finished to thunderous applause, and he leaned into camera one with that familiar smirk. "And now," he said, his voice dripping with theatrical charm, "please welcome Meghan Markle." The audience erupted as Meghan emerged from behind the curtain, all grace and poise, her practiced smile radiating warmth. She waved demurely and shook Daniel's hand before settling herself across from him at his iconic desk. The trap was set. The players were in position. Neither knew that in less than 20 minutes, everything would explode. "Meghan," Daniel began warmly, his voice smooth as silk, "it's really something to have royalty here in the studio. Tell me, how's life outside the palace?" She chuckled softly, the sound perfectly calibrated for television. "Well, Daniel, I wouldn't exactly call it a palace, but life is busy, purposeful. Harry and I are focused on work that matters to us." The audience murmured approvingly. Daniel nodded, his smile genuine enough to fool the cameras. "Speaking of that work, your new charity initiative is getting incredible attention. Walk us through what you're hoping to accomplish." Meghan leaned forward slightly, her eyes lighting up with what appeared to be authentic passion. "It's about creating sustainable change in underserved communities. We're not just writing checks, we're building lasting infrastructure for education and economic opportunity." "That's beautiful work," Daniel said, and for a moment it seemed like the interview might stay in safe waters. "You know, through everything, the royal drama, the media scrutiny, the constant spotlight, you always look absolutely flawless. I have to ask, how do you keep it so fresh under all that pressure?" In the control booth, Kayla's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. She leaned into her microphone. "Camera 2, tighter on her face. I want to see every micro-expression." Meghan laughed, the sound still warm but with the faintest edge of wariness. "Sleep and good skincare, Daniel, and yoga. Lots of yoga." Sure. Though I have to say, the camera loves you. Some people just have that natural glow, and others, well, let's just say they get a little help from professionals." The studio fell silent for just a beat too long. Meghan's smile never wavered, but something flickered behind her eyes. The temperature in the studio shifted almost imperceptibly. Meghan crossed her legs and maintained her composure, but Daniel had tasted blood in the water. "I mean, there's nothing wrong with it," he continued, his voice carrying that faux casual tone that made seasoned publicists break into cold sweats. "Hollywood's full of people who've had a little work done. The pressure to look perfect must be incredible, especially when you're marrying into the royal family." Meghan's laugh was a masterclass in deflection. I think the pressure to be perfect is something every woman understands, Daniel, but I'm always believed authenticity trumps perfection. Authenticity, Daniel repeated, savoring the word like fine wine. That's interesting, because I've been hearing some fascinating stories about your journey to authenticity. In the third row, Michael Torres felt his phone buzz with notifications. His blog followers were already picking up on the tension. He quickly typed, "Something's brewing on Crosstalk. Daniel's circling like a shark. Hashtag Meghan Markle. Drama." Kayla's voice crackled through Daniel's earpiece. "He's taking the bait. Push a little harder." "What kind of stories?" Meghan asked haughtily. She kept her voice light, curious, but her knuckles were white where they gripped the arm of her chair. Daniel leaned back with theatrical consideration. "Oh, you know how people talk, especially people who knew you before you became, well, the Meghan Markle. They remember things, they notice changes." The audience began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the feel-good celebrity chat they'd signed up for. "People change, Daniel," Meghan replied evenly. "I hope I've grown as a person since my 20s. Haven't you?" But Daniel's smile had sharpened into something predatory. "Of course, though some changes are more, well, visible than others." The words hung in the air like a challenge. The first real blow had been struck, and everyone in the studio knew there was no going back. Daniel adjusted his tie with the practiced ease of a man who knew he was about to detonate a bomb. The studio lights caught the glint in his eyes as he leaned forward, suddenly intimate. "Actually, Meghan, that's funny you should mention people from your past, because I had a fascinating conversation earlier this week with someone who knew you quite well before you became, well, the Meghan Markle." The color drained from Meghan's face so quickly that even the makeup couldn't hide it. Her smile flickered like a candle in wind. "This person," Daniel continued, savoring every word, "had some very interesting observations about your transformation over the years. They mentioned a few enhancements that helped you become camera-ready for Hollywood." The studio erupted in barely contained gasps. Someone in the back row whispered, "Oh my God," loud enough for the boom mics to catch. Kayla's tracting kin through Daniel's earpiece. "I want those photos ready to go live in 30 seconds. Michael Torres's fingers flew across his phone screen. "Holy shit, Daniel just dropped a bomb about Meghan Markle's plastic surgery. Anonymous source claims inside info. This is wild. Hashtag Megangate." Within seconds, his tweet had 50 retweets. "Anonymous sources," Meghan said, her voice cutting through the studio's electric tension, "are the coward's way of spreading gossip, Daniel. I expected better from you." But Daniel's predatory smile only grew wider. The real show was just beginning. Without warning, the massive screen behind Daniel's desk blazed to life. Two images appeared side by side, then and now emblazoned across the top in bold red letters. On the left, a young Meghan from her Suits era, fresh-faced and natural. On the right, a recent red carpet photo, professionally lit and flawlessly made up. The audience collectively inhaled. Someone dropped their drink. "What the hell is this?" Meghan snapped, her carefully maintained composure finally cracking. Her voice carried across the studio with the force of a whip crack. Kayla's voice crackled through the control room. "Camera 3, zoom in on her reaction. This is television gold." Michael Torres was typing furiously. "OMG, they just put up before-after pics of Meghan on the big screen. She looks furious. This interview just became a bloodbath. Hashtag Meghan versus Daniel." The hashtag was already trending in Los Angeles. "You're exploiting edited images and suggesting cosmetic surgery based on completely different lighting and camera angles," Meghan said, her media training warring with her rising fury. "This isn't journalism, Daniel. This is character assassination." But Daniel just shrugged, his smile never wavering. "I'm just giving the people what they want to know." The battle lines were drawn, the gloves were off, and America
was watching. Meghan leaned forward in her chair, her eyes blazing with an intensity that made the studio lighting seem dim by comparison. The polished, diplomatic Duchess had vanished, replaced by someone who'd clearly had enough. "Let me be very clear about something, Daniel," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "What you're doing right now isn't journalism. It's on-air bullying. It's using your platform to humiliate a woman based on anonymous gossip and manipulated photographs." Daniel's smile tightened, but he held his ground. "I'm asking questions that millions of people are wondering about. Isn't that what journalism is supposed to do? Hold public figures accountable?" "Accountable for what?" Meghan shot back. "For existing as a woman in the public eye? For having the audacity to look different in professional photos than I did 10 years ago?" The audience was riveted, their heads swiveling between the combatants like spectators at a tennis match. Some were clearly uncomfortable, shifting in their seats and checking their phones. Others leaned forward, hungry for more drama. "Look," Daniel said, spreading his hands in a gesture of false reasonableness. "If there's nothing to hide, why not just address it directly? Your silence speaks volumes." "My silence?" Meghan's voice rose dangerously. "You ambush me with unverified claims from anonymous sources, display doctored comparisons on national television, and then demand I prove a negative? This is exactly the kind of sexist garbage that drives women out of public life." Michael Torres was having the night of his blogging career. "Meghan just called Daniel a sexist bully on live TV. She's absolutely destroying him. The audience is split between cheering and gasping. I can't believe this is happening. Hashtag Meghan fights." His follower count was climbing by the hundreds. Kayla couldn't contain her glee as she watched the ratings monitor. "This is going to break the internet," she whispered to her assistant. "Give me close-ups of both their faces. Every micro-expression is ratings gold." Daniel felt his control of the interview slipping and decided to escalate. "So you're saying your appearance is completely natural? No professional help whatsoever?" Meghan stood up slightly in her chair, her fury now undisguised. "I'm saying this interview is over." But Daniel wasn't done. "Not yet." Meghan took a deep breath, visibly gathering herself like a seasoned politician preparing for battle. When she spoke again, her voice had regained its controlled cadence, but underneath lay molten steel. "You know what, Daniel? Let's talk about something that actually matters," she said, deliberately turning away from him to address the audience directly. "Let's talk about the literacy program we launched last month that's already helping 5,000 children. Let's talk about the Clean Water Initiative that's bringing hope to communities that have been ignored for decades." It was a masterful pivot. Classic media training in action. Take control of the narrative, redirect to your talking points. Make the interviewer look petty for pursuing gossip over substance. But Daniel wasn't having it. "That's very admirable," he interrupted, his voice cutting through her attempt at redirection like a blade. "But we both know people tune in to hear the real story, not the press release version." He reached for a card on his desk with theatrical flair. "In fact, our source had more to share. They mentioned that you used to look completely different before your Hollywood transformation. Those are their words, not mine." The audience murmured uneasily. This felt wrong, invasive, but they couldn't look away. Meghan's composure finally showed real cracks. "Your anonymous source is either lying or being paid to lie. Either way, it's cowardly to hide behind unnamed accusations." "So you're calling our source a liar?" "I'm calling you a coward," Meghan shot back, her royal training warring with her American directness. "Anyone can make claims from the shadows. Put a name to these accusations or stop wasting everyone's time." Michael Torres was in full social media frenzy mode. "Meghan just called Daniel a coward. The gloves are off. She's refusing to answer plastic surgery questions and demanding he name his source. This is the most brutal interview I've ever witnessed. Hashtag Team Meghan, hashtag Crosstalk." His poll, "Whose side are you on?" had already attracted 15,000 votes. The studio felt like a powder keg waiting for a spark. Daniel's mask of professional courtesy finally slipped. His smile turned predatory, his eyes cold as winter. He leaned back in his chair with the confidence of a man who believed he held all the cards. "You know, Meghan," he said, drawing out her name like he was savoring a fine wine, "I find it interesting that every time someone asks you a direct question about your appearance, you deflect to charity work or attack the questioner. I mean, truth can be uncomfortable, but isn't honesty supposed to be of royal virtue?" The implication hung in the air like poison gas. He was suggesting that her refusal to answer was itself an answer, that silence meant guilt, that a woman defending her privacy was somehow proof of deception. Meghan's hands gripped the arms of her chair so tightly her knuckles went white. For a moment, the studio held its collective breath, waiting to see which way she would break. Then, she exploded. "A setup. This entire interview is a setup. You booked me under false pretenses, ambushed me with tabloid garbage, and now you're suggesting that my refusal to participate in this character assassination somehow proves your point?" The audience was dead silent now, sensing they were witnessing something historic. Some looked uncomfortable, others riveted. A few were recording on their phones despite the no-recording policy. "You want truth, Daniel? Here's your truth. This isn't journalism. This is exploitation. This is a middle-aged man using his platform to tear down a woman because it gets him ratings. This is everything that's wrong with media culture rolled into one pathetic display." In the control room, Kayla was practically vibrating with excitement. Her hand hovered over the commercial break button, but she couldn't bring herself to press it. This was television gold. This was the kind of viral moment that defined careers. Michael Torres typed frantically, "Meghan is going nuclear." She just called the whole interview a setup and accused Daniel of exploitation. The studio is silent. I think she's about to walk. #Meghan meltdown, #journalism debate. The hashtag exploded across social media platforms. Within minutes, #Meghan meltdown was trending nationally. Daniel opened his mouth to respond, but Meghan wasn't finished. What happened next would be replayed on news channels for weeks, dissected by media analysts, and turned into countless memes. But in the moment, it was pure, unfiltered human drama. Meghan reached up and unclipped her wireless microphone with deliberate precision. The tiny device made a soft thud as she placed it on Daniel's desk, the sound somehow thunderous in the silent studio. "You don't get to humiliate me for ratings," she said, her voice steady now, controlled, devastating in its quiet fury. "You don't get to use my face, my body, my life as content for your entertainment machine." She stood gracefully, smoothing down her blazer with the kind of poise that only comes from years of training in composure under pressure. Every movement was deliberate, regal, final. "Thank you to the audience for being here tonight," she said, turning to address them directly, completely ignoring Daniel. "I hope you'll remember that behind every public figure is a human being who deserves basic dignity." The applause started slowly, one person in the back, then a few more, then a wave of support that rippled through the studio. Not everyone clapped, but enough did to make a statement. Daniel sat frozen, his carefully crafted persona cracking in real time. "Meghan, wait," he started, but she was already walking toward the exit, her heels clicking against the studio floor like a countdown. "And that, folks," she called over her shoulder without looking back, "is how you handle a bully." The studio erupted. Some audience members cheered, others booed. Many just sat in stunned silence. Security moved to clear a path as Meghan disappeared behind the curtain, leaving Daniel alone at his desk with a dead microphone and a studio full of chaos. Michael Torres's fingers flew across his phone. She walked. Meghan just walked off Crosstalk, called Daniel a bully, and walked off live TV. The audience is going crazy. Half are cheering, half are booing. This is insane. Hashtag Meghan walkout, hashtag power move. The clip would be viral within the hour. The fallout would last for weeks. But in that moment, Meghan Markle had reclaimed her power, and everyone knew it. Within 3 hours, the clip had 20 million views across all platforms. Hashtag Meghan walkout dominated Twitter. TikTok exploded with reaction videos, and cable news channels cleared their schedules for emergency panels on journalism ethics and celebrity accountability. The internet split along predictable lines. Team Meghan praised her for standing up to media bullying. Team Daniel accused her of dodging legitimate questions. The middle ground crumbled as fast as the clip went viral. Meghan Markle just taught a masterclass in dignity, read one trending tweet with 50,000 likes. Daniel Cross is a sexist has-been desperate for relevance, declared another. But the counter-narrative was equally fierce. If you have nothing to hide, why walk out? And public figures don't get to pick their questions. By morning, Meghan had released a statement through her publicist. Last night reminded us why so many women avoid public platforms. When personal attacks masquerade as journalism, we all lose. I stand by my decision to refuse participation in my own dehumanization. Daniel, meanwhile, doubled down on his morning radio show. I asked the questions everyone was thinking. If that makes me the bad guy, so be it. Real journalism isn't always comfortable. Michael Torres found himself booked on 3 podcasts and a morning show, suddenly the accidental chronicler of a cultural moment. His blog traffic had increased by 2,000%. I was just live tweeting, he told interviewers. I had no idea it would explode like this. Kayla Rivers watched the ratings reports with satisfaction. The episode had broken the show's viewership record. Her phone buzzed constantly with interview requests and job offers from competing networks. But in the court of public opinion, there was no clear winner. Meghan controlled the exit, but Daniel controlled the conversation. The truth about her appearance remained as mysterious as ever. What everyone could agree on was this: they had witnessed something raw, unscripted, and utterly human in an age of manufactured celebrity content. The real question wasn't who won the confrontation. It was what it said about all of us that we couldn't look away. The clip remains one of the most watched celebrity interview moments in television history. Neither Meghan nor Daniel has spoken publicly about it since. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.